Hello humans, how are you? My name is Paul Mount and you are watching my world of stuff. Just a quick introduction for potential new viewers. This particular video is a slight sort of soft relaunch for the channel. If you've been here before, you might have noticed an updated title sequence and a new theme music and slightly improved thumbnails for the videos, which I hope will make my content a little bit more attractive to casual browsers. But if you are new and you've paused to have a look at see what I'm talking about, this is my world of stuff. I am Paul Mount. I am a writer for Starburst magazine, but don't hold that against me, only joking. I've been interested in films and TV and books and physical media and just entertainment stuff all my life, and I thought during the pandemic I'd start up a little YouTube channel, and it's been quite fun. But I'm looking to sort of build my subscriber base a little bit, and thank you very much to everybody who subscribed. I do appreciate it. Will be nice to get a few more comments, but that's entirely up to you, of course. But I thought I'd just do a little bit of a relaunch and reintroduce myself and let you know what's in store for you on this channel going forward. So, looking back, you'll see a mixture of unboxings and comment pieces and reviews. I'm going to be focusing now mainly on reviews, film reviews, TV reviews, books, any sort of creative stuff which takes my fancy, which I think you might be interested in. Plus there will be unboxings, because everybody likes a good unboxing, and the odd news item if something comes up my way which I think you need to know about. So that's where we are. This is my world of stuff. So if you're interested, just click that subscribe button which is there somewhere. Click the like as well, would be nice, and leave a comment, and let's build up this channel into something quite interesting. Just to let you know as well, I'm not monetized. I haven't got a Patreon account. I'm not on Instagram. I haven't got any of that sort of stuff, or Discord. I won't be shouting at you to join this and look at that and pay for this and pay for that. This is just a little YouTube facility where I will be venting my spleen about the stuff I like and sometimes the stuff I don't like. And if that's of interest to you, then come on, let's have some fun. Yes, indeed. Anyway, the subject of this particular video is Ben Wheatley's new film, which is called In the Earth. Now, for those of you who might not know, Ben Wheatley is a very interesting British director who's been on the scene now for about 10 years. I think his first film was Kill List in 2011, which was an interesting sort of thriller film with slightly sort of folklore, horror, sort of vaguely Wicker Man vibes in the last act. He's since gone on to rack up an interesting and impressive number of credits. Films like Sightseers, which is a sort of a black comedy about two very odd individuals going on a tour, the north of England, I think, in a van, and the peculiar things they get up to on the way. Field in England, which was another sort of rural psychological horror film. Kill List, which was sort of an action, not Kill List, sorry, Free Fire, which is a sort of a gun-heavy action comedy. And he also directed High Rise, based on the J.G. Ballard book. That was probably his most high-profile film. It starred Tom Hiddleston, of course. And more recently, he did a version of Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca, which I believe debuted on Netflix last year. Interestingly, he also, by the way, directed 2 Doctor Who episodes. He directed Peter Capaldi's first 2 Doctor Who stories back in 2014. Interestingly, for all the work he's done, he's not really yet a mainstream director. He's not a household name in the way like a Steven Spielberg or Michael Bay or any of those people are. He's very much ploughing his own furrow and doing his own thing. His next film is The Meg 2, which is a big, massive budgeted Hollywood blockbuster starring Jason Statham, and I sort of suspect he's done that to sort of leap up the directing ladder a few rungs, which would be interesting. And it'll be interesting to see what his particular sensibilities bring to a big action movie, big budget franchise. But for now, we're talking about his latest film, In the Earth, and this is very much, you could describe it as the third part of his rural folk horror trilogy, following on from Kill List and A Field in England. And this is very much a return to his roots in a way. This is a film that was written, directed and made during the early days of the pandemic. I think that Ben was sort of cooling his heels and going a bit crazy at the thought of what he was going to do, not being able to do his job. And he created and crafted this low budget, not easy to make, but pandemic friendly thriller. which he was able to do, I think, in 15 days. It was released in January at various festivals, and now it's available in cinemas in the UK, certainly selected cinemas. And it's very, very intriguing. I watched it on the weekend, and it's a film which has sort of stayed in my head because it is quite creepy, it's quite eerie, and it's one of the most unusual horror films I've seen in the last few years, and it comes highly recommended. It's, as I say, it's made during the pandemic, and it's actually about the pandemic. Now, the story is basically as a deadly virus which has ravaged the world. Now, we're not entirely sure if it's the pandemic as we know it, as we've lived through it, or whether it's something far worse. But certainly, it's from certain parts of the dialogue. It's clearly it's had a debilitating effect on humanity, and people are struggling to find a cure and find ways to live and exist despite the virus. So again, it suggests that it's possibly a bit more than the COVID that we've had the last year or so. Our lead character is Martin Lowry, played by the excellent Joel Fry, who you'll possibly have noticed as one of Cruella's henchmen in the recent Cruella prequel film, which is also excellent, by the way. He's a scientist, and he's sent to a government-controlled outpost which is located in a fertile forested area outside of Bristol to help in the studies and experiments of a former colleague and ex-lover of his, Olivia Wendell, based on the hypothesis of using sort of fungus cross-fertilized with plants to create some sort of food substitute, because presumably the food stocks have become a bit depleted post-virus. As I say, that sort of detail is slightly vague. He passes a physical, he meets his guide Alma, and the two of them voyage into the forest. He learns of the local legend of Parnag Feg, a woodland spirit. The day afterwards, the two begin their trek into the forest, where things almost immediately start to become a little bit strange. A very striking, very visual film. Now, a lot of the reviews have sort of focused on these slightly hallucinogenic sequences which appear towards the end of the film. And when going into this, I thought, well, is it going to be a bit of a sort of a head trip? Is it going to be a bit magic mushroomy? But it actually isn't. The first hour or so of this is very much a traditional strangers in the woods, terrorised by lunatic type thing, because they come across a character played by the brilliant Reece Shearsmith, character called Zach, who's sort of bedraggled and bearded and obviously not quite right. He appears to help them. During the night, they appear to have been attacked in their tents. A lot of their equipment and their clothes have been stolen, including their shoes. Martin injures his foot, tears his foot open, and this character Zach appears to befriend them. He takes them back to his own base, which is sort of a series of tents. But unfortunately, he sort of, although he patches Martin up with some very primitive stitching, he also gives them a drug which sort of knocks them out. And then they're pitched into a sort of what appears to be a fairly traditional story of people lost in the woods being terrorised by a lunatic. But it goes off into different directions after that. You get all that sort of stuff. They're tied up, they escape, he chases after them, he fires arrows after them to try and bring them down. But eventually another character comes into this, and this is Olivia, who's had this former relationship with Martin, and she explains that Zach was her husband and he went off the rails slightly, something affected him, and he's gone off and become this loner living in the woods. All the while there's connections to the strange standing stone in the woods with a sort of a hole in the middle of it. Olivia's wired up speakers and she's broadcasting this discordant sonic sounds throughout the forest. Clearly there's something strange in the forest, some sort of presence, whether it's Parnag Feg or some other demonic creature we never really know. But it affects all of them in strange and unpredictable ways. And I think strange and unpredictable is probably the best way to describe this film. As I say, the first hour is quite traditional and quite straightforward, trapped in the woods type thing. And then it does go a little bit psychedelic, but not as much as I was expecting. There are a couple of sequences where Martin is a bit sort of feverish and has these weird imaginings. There's another scene where Alma, the guide, at one point a strange mist rolls in and threatens to trap them. She dons a hazmat suit and stumbles in through the mist. but she's affected by something hallucinogenic, and there's lots of sort of weird mixture of flashback sequences and sort of drug-induced sequences, which are quite disorientating, but they're not the bulk of the film, and I sort of thought they would be. So I was quite pleased that I kept the narrative thread, because I thought, is this going to get a bit pretentious and a bit off the rails? But it never really did. And I found it very striking and very haunting. Some superb visuals. I mean, there's always something typically British, I think, about that folklore sort of people trapped in the woods, the crackling branches underfoot and the wind howling through the trees and the strange noises of the birds. It's quite an isolating experience. That comes across really well in this film. The ending is possibly a little bit ambiguous. It sort of comes to an end and doesn't really answer what questions you might have about the film, but clearly there's some sort of presence in the forest that's being disturbed by what's going on there, and it's a sort of nature versus humanity type story, I suppose, in a way. Nature protecting itself from humanity impinging upon its territory. Terrific performances, as I said, from Joel Fry, who's always good, Reece Shearsmith, who's brilliant, of course, and the entire cast are really superb. We also have Hayley Squires, Elora Torture playing the female lead characters, Alma and Olivia. And what's quite nice about it is that although Reece Shearsmith we know quite well, the others are not really, like Ben Wheatley himself, household names. They're sort of new faces, and I think that helps carry the story along, because you're invested in them, not your preconceptions of other parts they may have played. A terrific film, not for everybody. It's quite a slow burn. It's very much a character piece, but the first hour is quite tense, because with these stories set in mysterious, creepy woods, there's always this sort of feeling that there's something, unnatural and sort of earthly and unearthly lurking in the trees, and I do find that quite creepy, creepier than any sort of rubber masked monsters and things which you can dismiss as fantasy. But this is very much based on the sort of rural folklore and superstition and stuff like that, and it's very striking, visually really well made, considering it was made low budget, over 15 days. It's got a real scope to it. The soundscape is superb. If you watch it in a cinema on the big screen with a good sound system, you will become completely immersed in the environment and in the story. So it's very unusual. It's not really a mainstream horror film, because there's a bit more to it than that. It's not a Conjuring, it's not a Scream, any of that sort of thing. It's much more subtle and much more cerebral, and it is a film that sort of stayed with me a bit since I saw it on the weekend. So I'd highly recommend it. It's directed by Ben Wheatley. It's in the cinemas now. I don't know if it's in the big mainstream cinemas, but you may have to hunt it down. But it's certainly on general release at the moment, and it's called In the Earth, directed by Ben Wheatley. And for me, something I do, I rate my films, of course, and it's going to give a great big, I never get it right, I'm going to give this a big fat 9 out of 10, because I felt it was very striking, very unusual, and extremely visual. Right, well, that's me for this video. As I said, if you are new, and I hope you've enjoyed my ramblings on this film, please join me in this world of stuff journey. Like and subscribe, and until I see you next time, keep taking this stuff.